I'm here today with Tracy Arakaki. He's the founder of Punishum Motorsports, which was established over 22 years ago. He has a passion for racing, and he's accidentally found himself immersed in a world of television. He's had a clothing line. He dabbles a little bit in politics. He promoted major sporting events here in Hawaii in the past. And now he's here with me today. We're going to go over, what got him involved in all these activities. What got him in the passion for racing is fascinating to me. So I want to welcome you, Tracy, for being here and for being a guest on my show. I thank you. And please, just give us a little bit about your background and whatever it is that got you interested in racing in the beginning, because that's kind of where I would go.
Thanks, James, for having me today. Racing has always been a passion of mine. It started from when I was 5 years old when my dad first got me a model of a funny car. Mongoose and the Snake was really big back in the 60s. And that was the heydays of, the National Hot Rod Association and drag racing. Today there's so many different sporting programs, ESPN, Fox Sports. Back then, in our days when I was growing up, all we had was ABC Wild World of Sports and Howard Cosell. That was, your Saturday fix was pretty much all you got, that came on the air. So watching the NHRA drag racing on Wide World of Sports and the Daytona races from the NASCAR, I was not very lucky where I knew racing was my passion at a very young age, but that was not something that my parents were into. So I remember watching the Daytona 500 and my dad coming to change the channel because that wasn't his thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I never got to do it until I was actually an adult where I could take the risk and the expenses, because racing is very expensive all on my own. But I knew from a very young age, and especially growing up back in the heyday, like I said, we had folks like the Evil Knievels and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
I forgot all about that.
So watching him and, trying to emulate him on your bicycle when you're out in playing with your friends on the weekends or after school and stuff. So it was always within me from back in my day.
So I guess, at what point did you consciously decide, or I guess what was your first venture into racing, amateur racing, or anything like that? A lot of people, I had friends who did dirt bike racing, things like that.
Right.
Were you involved in anything like that, or what was your path exactly?
I had never gotten into any type of form of motorsports in my younger youth until I was an adult. When I was in high school, I volunteered a lot with the 4-H program. So one of the guys who were in college at the time, I went to visit him at the dorms at UH, and he had a motorcycle, a small little GPZ, 500 or 350. It was a Kawasaki. And so he took me back home on his motorcycle back to my house in IL. And I got to ride on a motorcycle for the first time, and I thought that was just the coolest thing.
You were on the back?
Yeah.
Holding them?
I was riding on the back.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Anyway, right? So the guy was, taking me back. He was an older guy, so he had a motorcycle. I knew nothing about it, and I thought that motorcycles were the coolest thing. So one day, one of the local motorcycle shops here had a bike that was advertised in a newspaper. It was an Interceptor 500. And
what kind of bike is that?
It's a Honda. It's a 500. It's a Honda motorcycle.
Like a rice burner kind, or the
yeah,
other?
it's like when the first sport bikes started coming out. It was like 1986 or 85 or something like that.
That's when I came out the womb, man.
Yeah, so it's when they started getting into that crouch stance on the motorcycles with plastic fairings for helping with the aerodynamics and the wings. And so I just thought that was the coolest thing. So this one was apparently abandoned, and it was kind of ready for the junkyard, so we got to get it pretty cheap. My parents were never gonna probably allow it to be kept in the garage at the house, so a friend of mine who lived across the street, I kept it at his house for the longest time. And I eventually got to meet a guy who we started riding with, and those guys would go out and race at Hawaii Raceway Park. And so I finally got to get out to Hawaii Raceway Park. Well, first of all, that bike that I had, a friend of mine let him borrow it, and he crashed it. Right?
Good friend.
Yeah, good friend. So he crashed that motorcycle, and then I heard from another person that I knew of this guy who could fix that motorcycle. So the guy who damaged my motorcycle, his father paid me whatever the cost was going to be to get it repaired.
Oh, wow.
And I
Nice.
took it to this guy's house to go and get it fixed, and he lived not too far from us. And he started fixing the motorcycle, but he ended up spending the money on something else. So the bike that was broken that he was supposed to fix never got fixed. But eventually someone had told him, you know, to do the right thing. And so they fixed me up another bike that he had that was sitting in his garage in a pile of parts and pieces. And it was a Kawasaki GPZ 750. And they started teaching me how to ride. And I started riding with these guys. And that's how I got interested in racing, because that's what they did. They went out to the Hawaii Raceway Park. So getting out there for the first time and watching them race, and then to actually have gotten over there on a street racing night to go down the racetrack that was a thrill.
And
I mean,
what was that? It was just like a straightaway for drag racing.
drag racing was a drag racing thing.
And
You know,
it's not. Is that the one that they always say was out like in Eva or something?
Campbell Industrial Park.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's in Campbell Industrial Park. So now it's a whole bunch of warehouse spaces. They pieced it out, closed down a racetrack that was around since 1964. They closed it in 2006 after 42 years. And
What was the reason behind that?
greed in politics.
Yeah, typical.
It's one of the reasons why I kind of got into politics later on in life. But it's, you know, it's unfortunately that's where a lot of the things end up coming out around here is due to politics.
Right.
But, you know, further on down the road, I started to get more into racing. I got involved with the local road racing association. I did a whole bunch of events with them in the drag racing, but I wanted to do more. So before I got into the racing side, I ended up with a clothing company. You know, in high school, I learned how to fix show cars from a guy. And then I had to work it off because he was a breeder of show bull terriers. So I got the bull terrier from him. I couldn't afford to pay it even after saving up my birthday money. So he asked me if I was into cars. So I ended up working at his house on the weekends and learning how to build show cars and do body and fender and stuff. So I ended up being in the body and fender industry for several years after high school.
That's interesting. So I'm just like, you were around these guys who are racing these bikes. When you first raced your first bike down the little strip,
Right.
zoom,
The drag strip, yeah.
was that on the bike that you bought that stored at your friend's garage? Or did you
No,
have to?
that one was crashed. Remember, that's the one that was crashed.
Ah,
So this other bike was kept at that guy's house who was supposed to fix the bike, but he put this other bike together for me, and we kept it at his house for a while until, you know, we would go out to the drag strip, and one night I got brave enough and I finally took the bike home. And I put it in my garage. So when my dad was getting ready and my mom was getting ready to go to work one day, they saw this bike sitting there in the garage, you know.
I'm sure they were not probably happy.
Yeah, senior son, but at that point I was an adult, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, once you get to that point when you're over 18, you can kind of write your own ticket to do things that are dangerous and dumb, I guess, you know.
Yeah, unless you're living at home with them, I think.
I was still under their roof at the time, you know, but it's my introduction into racing and stuff.
And then how did your family feel? Like, did they know how serious you were, or you just never
No.
mentioned it, or?
Yeah, I don't think my dad ended up really realizing how much I was actually into it. Because for a lot of folks, you know, they just think it's a phase,
Mhm.
a passing phase kind of type of thing. But for me, it was a passion that had burned inside of me for a long time. So after I left the garment industry, I started my own contract printing company. And I did a lot of contract printing for some other bigger manufacturers here, you know, printing up, you know, family or friends who did family reunions or baseball teams and that kind of type of stuff. So that was my home business that I did at home. And then, you know, when I wasn't doing that, then I'd be working on a bike, getting it ready for the bracket race that was the 50th State Pro Gas, you know, at that time. And when you ran in the 50th State Pro Gas in those index categories, you know, it was kind of expensive to race because you had to have the bikes that went so fast, at least, you know, 9 seconds, in order for it to be into, you know, the super gas class. Or pro bike back then was, you know, 11:20s. And street bikes back then, you were lucky if they did, you know, 12 seconds, right?
Huh.
So it was a lot slower, and you had to spend money, which I didn't have.
Right.
And so bracket was the next best thing. Besides, when you end up getting into those index categories with the NHRA, you have to have a license. You just can't go down a racetrack, especially when you're talking about 9 seconds, you know, and 130 miles an hour.
What is the license for? Like to race in that organization, or?
To within that particular, the licenses are for within that particular class. So it designates how fast you can go, right? So you gotta get like a medical clearance, and then you gotta take so many passes down within, you know. So if it's a 990 class, you gotta prove that you can run that 9 seconds, and then you have to have other racers that signed off on your license in order for you to now be a licensed, you know, racer in the National Hot Rod Association. So all of that, you know, doctors, you know, checking you out and everything else, that takes money.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what I did was I ended up racing the brackets. Brackets, all you have to do is pay the entry fee. And, you know, and to be honest, brackets made money. Indexes was bragging rights. You know, the Pro Gas, you walk away with a trophy and very little money at the end of that particular night. But during the brackets, you know, that particular 2 years that I raced, I bought another bike.
Oh, wow.
Whenever I won, I would end up turning it back into buying more tools. So I go down to Sears, and I now could afford to buy a Dremel tool. So I could start fabricating my own parts and pieces and stuff. So, you know, I was dedicated enough where whatever money I made, I always put it back into the passion. You know, buying oil, filters, new tires, you know what I mean? Buying tools.
Yeah, because
so
that's your thing, yeah.
That's your thing, right? So it's like a business. When you run a business, right, it's not like, yeah, now I made $100, I'm going to go blow it on going to the bar or taking my girl to dinner or something. Yeah. If you're serious in it, you're going to keep pumping your funds back into that business to make it to grow. And racing, you know, is no different, because you want to try and get to the next race to try and see if you can win some more money again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And what was the racing scene like? Was it big? Was there a lot of people? Was that like a money maker for not only the state or the county, but for the people itself who raced?
Yeah, I mean, back in those days, the stands were pretty packed. You know, then I was fortunate to see when you had guys like Hawaii's legend Roland Leong come down from the mainland with his funny car. And so they had those exhibitions, and it was not only the stands were packed, but you had people lining the drag strip down on both sides. And there were so many folks that came from the neighbor islands to participate. I still remember that first night on a Friday night, the first round of qualifying for guys who were competing in those index classes. It didn't end till like 4 o'clock the next morning. I mean, that's how many folks they had actually just trying to compete to qualify to race on that next Saturday night. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
And then you listen to the old timers who were back there in the 60s, and they say the 60s and the 70s was even bigger than it was in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. It's interesting because I know several people who are into like car racing.
Right.
I don't know if they're into motorcycle racing and things like that. I never asked, and they've been pushing for, you know, a new track for the longest time. So yeah, there's definitely the hunger for that.
A lot of businesses closed down, you know, that had supported the racing industry here on Oahu. You know, Oahu's facility was the only one in our entire state where you go to the neighbor islands, they don't have drifting. You know, some of them do have SCCA, and it's something that's only been recently. They don't have, you know, go-kart racing on every. Oahu was the only track where we had every type of form of racing. We had, you know, open wheel vehicles that would go door to door, or SCCA folks that would be doing time trials, motorcycle road racing, drag racing, drifting. I mean, it was the only place where it had helped to also launch the careers of a lot of folks that went on to race on the World Championship stage, like Hawaii's Todd Okuhara, Roland Leong. They started over there at Hawaii Raceway Park back in the 60s too. So, you know, even if you don't get into racing, you know, a lot of the high school auto shop classes, it leads down to another path of being a mechanic.
Yeah.
You know, mechanics, you know, you can take courses where you got a 2-year degree at our local community college, or you can go to some place like UTI or some of these other trade schools in the mainland, and you're not going to be saddled with the debt like a 4-year degree is. And when you come out of it at the end of the day, these are very lucrative jobs. I mean, a kid just getting out of the school can make $40,000, $46,000 right off the bat. And as they go through their career and they become more knowledgeable, they become more valuable to the industry, and they make 6 figures. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like Todd Okuhara leaving, who started working on his dad's shop. The guy's a crew chief on these Nitro funny cars, and now he's a top fuel crew chief on the main. These guys are making like upwards of $500,000 a year doing that.
That's
You know what I
crazy.
mean? So the motorsports industry is an extremely lucrative path for folks who are not going to be a doctor or an attorney. You know, but a lot of the folks who end up going to college, they're saddled with debt, and a lot of folks that I know of, a vast majority of them who got a degree, right, are not even in their field doing what they got their degree in.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, you know, if you ever file for bankruptcy, that's one of the things that you can never get erased from your bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
Child support, taxes, and your student loans.
Student loans. Yeah. No, and that's wild too. So for you, you've competed. What was the furthest you've went? What was the highest achievement that you got?
Not really that high, man. I was fortunate enough to do some racing on the mainland. Some of the club racing, the motorcycle road racing up there. So I've been to tracks like Grattan in Michigan, Mid-Ohio, that kind of type of places. Once you kind of been up there at that level, though, when you came back home over here at Hawaii Racing Park, the track was not quite up to that specs as far as safety-wise is concerned.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had tried to want to promote and bring in motorsports events from back in the 90s. But unfortunately, without sponsors and connections political-wise, I was never afforded that opportunity to do that. So I was trying to figure out a way of what could I do to be valuable to the motorsports community so I can get in to see all these different events and things. That I wasn't just looking at drag racing or road racing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I wanted to try and figure out a way how to do and cover everybody. And so I came up with an idea of doing a television show. And I knew nothing about television back in 1998, right? So a buddy of mine had told me of this guy who did some stuff at this place called Olelo. And so I went to Olelo, got all the information, took their classes. And in 1999, I started piecing together with a little compact VHS tape recorder that I had on my own. That was my dad's one.
Oh, God.
So I was shooting footage with that, and then, you know, going through their classes to learn how to use their equipment. And in March of 2000 was the first airing of Punisher Motorsports, and oh my God, it was brutal. But, you know, we covered the car show guys, we covered the SCCA, we covered the drag racing folks, we covered the Harley Davidson cruises. And so a guy that I knew who had an automotive shop, I met him at a fair at Waimanalo. And this guy who was an announcer, I really liked him. I wanted him to host my television show. Come to find out, my mom who worked at the finance company, the guy worked with my mom at the finance company. So she talked to him, right? And I talked to this guy who ran his automotive shop, and I got my on-air talent. I have actually had no intention of being in front of the camera. I was wanted to be, all I thought about doing was just the camera work and things like that. And so it took several months to get these guys to come on board. And they ended up becoming the host and the reporter of my television show. And so after we shot this very first show, we ended up having the screening with everybody at my friend's automotive, you know, shop over there in Waipahu. And I didn't know what to think of it, right? And so everybody came in. It was a potluck style, and there was probably about 50, 60 people over there in the shop from all these various car clubs and race association and everything. At the end of the show, everybody applauded. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, it was kind of funny because when we ended up going over there to the very first event and had talked to the folks from the 50th State Pro Gas Association, and they made the announcement in the drivers' meeting, and I remember everybody snickering because they saw the camera. Yeah, it was a big broadcast camera and everything, but it had the words Olelo on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember guys snickering like, Olelo, right?
Because Olelo, for anyone who might not know, is public
public access.
Yeah, public access.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, the YouTube of back in the day.
Hey, that's how Tom Green started. Right. That's how a lot of guys started, right?
It was just public access, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because to get on television back then, you know, it was very expensive. Yeah. You know, you had to buy airtime or, you know, be able to put out a quality content of program where you could get it on one of the network stations. Cable back then, even then, was still like not where it is today.
Yeah.
You know, and so to have been able to have public access was a blessing because you could use it as an opportunity to hone your craft, right? And so we were, by the time the second or third, you know, episode came out, and everybody was crying if they weren't on the air. right? So these
Oh,
guys
they
who are
weren't a part
arrogant and
of it.
making fun of you, you know. So
Yeah.
you can now look. I would look at these guys and go, "Did you win?" Right? It's like, well, no. Well, maybe if you won the race, then maybe we can put you on the air or something like that, you know. But it was kind of funny to see how, as you know, in that short 3 to 4 month period where now it started to get out there in the community, you know. So there were so many restrictions on Olelo back then where you only could use the camera like one day a month. But for me to go out and cover all these different events in these clubs and stuff, I practically needed it every single weekend.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of time where, you know, like I would check out the camera from Olelo on Saturday night because you only could take it out for 24 hours. Right? So I would check the camera
It's like
out.
the library.
Yeah. So I could check the camera out on Saturday evening about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I would run over there to the drag race to cover them. Then I would go over to the circle track side, which is the dirt guys, right? Get some races from them, and then come back before the evening was over, like about 11 o'clock, to catch the ending of the guys who made it to the finals for the drag racing.
Wow.
Go back home in the morning, right? Go and catch the Harley Davidson guys as they get ready for their cruise or their poker run as they're getting started. Go back to Hawaii Raceway Park and covered either the Hawaii Road Racing Association for the motorcycle guys or the SCCA that was doing their club racing, and then run back about 2 o'clock as the bike guys are coming back for their function. With now they had everybody gathered for the music and entertainment and their games and whatever they were doing afterwards. So I would cover like 4 to 5 different events within that 24-hour period before I had to drop the camera back off at Olelo.
Oh wow. And there was no like loophole around it. Like you couldn't have a friend like check out the camera.
Yeah, you could, but they would have to be tied into like your programming, or they would have to be certified with the equipment, because you have to be certified to be able to take the equipment out.
Oh,
too.
I see.
So but the thing that I did was, you know, a lot of this equipment, because it was public access, a lot of times it was really grungy, or the equipment didn't work.
Yeah.
So I would be the guy to help them to find out which one did work, and then I always ended up turning it back in better than I left it.
Oh, man, you're a good guy.
Yeah,
That's
so
why.
so whenever I needed to borrow the equipment, they made sure they gave me the dirtiest, most grungiest camera they had in the inventory, because they knew when I brought it back, the thing was gonna be nice and clean, right?
He said, "Oh, Tracy's coming. Give him that one
Yeah.
or whatever."
So by the time, you know, like after the first 6 months of doing the TV show, they knew that I was serious about knowing and putting out a good programming for their station, and so they would end up allowing me to, you know, take out more the camera equipment more than allotted, or they would allow me to come inside and do more editing. So, you know, I had a successful screen printing company that was going on at the time. I had a part-time guy that was working for me and everything else, and I ended up just letting that company wither on the vine to just learn the television aspect of it, you know.
Now I'm curious because with the Olelo thing, do they help you? Did they help you edit, or you had to edit everything yourself?
They basically give you the opportunity to use the equipment. They'll guide you, but you know, putting in the time and doing all this stuff is all up to you. You know, so it's one of those things where the more you do, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get, the better product you produce. So, you know, later on, about a year into it, a friend of mine's back then would tell me, "Hey, try and take it to the local cable station." You know what I mean? And I tried to do that, and they were critiquing my show, and I was kind of like,
"Bro, it's Olelo. Come on."
yeah, but they were, and it was kind of funny because then one of their top TV shows back then was this guy who had this handheld camera. Everybody knows him as the small guy with the camera,
Really?
right? So Tiny TV,
Tiny TV.
right?
Is
So,
it-
and I was like, wow, the world of Tiny TV is telling me that my television show isn't good enough for their station. And then right after that, I ended up, you know, getting some national awards for my television program.
Oh wow, nice.
And then that very year, Olelo started doing their own award ceremonies, and it was being judged by a lot of the folks within the local television industry here, from the news stations and everything else too. And then I ended up winning that award. And then in 2001, a buddy of mine, for his TV show that was on OC16 back then, which was called The Little Grass Shack, he was doing his home improvement show.
The Little Grass Shack.
Yeah, The Little Grass Shack.
That's what people think of Hawaii.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, you guys live in shacks."
Shacks.
Ah.
So that's how he kind of did the show. And it was kind of like Hawaii's version of Bob Vila,
Oh yeah.
right?
Bob Vila. That's right.
So back in those days. And so he told me that KHNO was looking for a cameraman. So I sent in my demo reel, and then I got a call to come inside from the chief photographer and the guy who was not the station manager, but he was the operations manager, and they saw my thing and they liked the way I shot, and because I knew how to do this thing called nonlinear editing, which Olelo started to introduce, so I was one of their guinea pigs because everything was done tape to tape back then.
Oh, wow.
And so they had this program that they're trying to do right now to introduce as a new class to the students or people who are getting into Olelo, Final Cut Pro, nonlinear editing,
yeah.
introduction to that. And so I took a chance and the class was free. So I got to learn this nonlinear editing. You know, a lot of the folks who don't want to try and progress, like all those programs who were really, really popular back then, and they were just doing the tape to tape stuff, they're no longer around because they didn't, you know, progress with the times.
Yeah.
Right. So being able to do that non-linear editing then allowed me to get into the news industry. Right. I was a shooter, but being able to edit in a news environment is very stressful. I mean, look at when you talk about most stressful jobs, you know, one of the top 7 most stressful jobs is like President of the United States, emergency room, guys who are in war, and a newsroom environment is one of the most stressful jobs you can be in, right? When you get the breaking news, you know, and the producers, you know, on the intercom over the station telling you 5 minutes to live and you're the lead story and you got 10 holes in your story so far and you're still editing. And
you got to figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure it out because, you know, when they say 5, 6, and 10, it's 5, 6, and 10. It's not 6:05 or 6:07 because you couldn't get your story on the air in time. Yeah. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, you know, they're going over the intercom and you had to go and do what they call putting your story to the server. So they would pull the story up as a reporter is, you know, leading into the story, and then they roll out of that. So a lot of times you're like so stressed to get the timeout where now you got to do what they call roll from cutter, where you're plugging your holes in this story while the reporter is doing the lead in.
Oh, wow.
And they're giving you the countdown in 5, 4, 3, and then you just the last one comes inside and then you got to hit the play button straight from your cutter, right? And so you finally got it on the air. It looks kind of not that good,
yeah,
right?
But it's okay. It's
but
just
it made air.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? So it taught me to learn to be fast, you know, and then my program taught me how to shoot quality. So, you know, 10 years later down in the industry, you know, I was fortunate enough to learn from a lot of guys who were Emmy Award winning folks. And at the end of when I first started, I was the only guy in the KHNL newsroom that didn't have a degree in the field. When I left the industry 10 years later on, I was the only cameraman in Hawaii news history to be the best video award for the Society of Professional Journalists 4 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
By the time we got to the 4th year, nobody entered.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to be able to progress in such a competitive industry.
So how long was the Olelo show, and then how long until were you still doing the Olelo show while doing the news? The
Yeah,
KHLN2?
when I first started in the news, I was still kind of doing it, and at about 2005 is when I decided to make the jump. Let's try and see if we can get it onto one of the regular stations. And so in 2005, because I was working in the newsroom, which is the sister station, KHNO, which is K5's, you know, KHNO was the main station and K5 was the sister station to KHNO, which was the NBC affiliate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew a lot of the folks in the industry, and I was fortunate to talk to the station manager back then, and he gave me a chance, and my show got on K5.
And what was the title of that one?
Punisher Motorsports.
Punisher, that was Punisher.
So it was still, you know, being able to do the news thing and still run my television show, and now get it to a broadcast station, not cable, but you're in a regular station where it can be seen across the entire state. So that was a really big leap for me to be able to do that. And just to be surrounded by so many folks within the industry and get their critiques on what I needed to do to keep improving it, you know. And
how long were you there? How long did you do the cameraman work?
I was at KHNL to the merger happened in 2009, and then I was doing all of my own things after that, and then I got a call from KHON to do some contract work, and you know, and then it was
I used to know a guy that did that, and then I think he moved to like Kauai. I don't know, what is that like? If there's a story over there,
yeah.
Oh,
then
okay, okay.
then they can give you a call, and then you you send them the footage, and then
What about the camera? Like, do they give? Do you
no,
like?
you probably got to use your own equipment,
Oh,
right? Because you're
jeez.
not part of the actual station, right?
So you're just like an independent
yeah,
contractor. Type.
basically.
Oh, I see. I see.
That's what it
Huh,
is.
interesting.
And so then on the last stint that I did was do a fill-in for one of the cameraman over there at KITV.
Oh yeah. Did
Yeah.
you ever like go on as like a reporter? They ever put you on?
No, I was always like the video journalist or just the cameraman. Yeah.
And then during this whole time, even during the Olelo, were you racing? Like, is there footage of you that you had them record and you put yourself on?
No,
Self-promotion?
I stopped racing back in '95
Oh yeah.
because it's once you got up there to the mainland and you kind of seen how things are done up there, and you come back here, a street bike versus one that you were leasing from a company that had, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like hopping on back onto like a lawnmower run, mini bike compared to running something that.
It's like hopping on like a Kawasaki Z400. Yeah.
No, actually, it's like getting onto a moped.
Really?
You know what I mean? It's just not the same. Because I mean, a lot of the motorcycles like the one that you got today, they were a lot more sophisticated than the full-on race bikes back in the day. You know, suspension-wise, tire compound-wise,
Oh, yeah, I
everything
bet.
has improved drastically, right? I mean, you guys got ABS,
Yeah.
throttle, fuel injection, right? That was all non-existent back in the day, right? So a lot of it had to be it was more of a rider's aspect. So, the reason why I got into motorcycles was because it was really fast and it wasn't expensive compared to a car.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing a story in like the publication Motorcyclist back in the day where it was talking about, how a guy who was flipping burgers with his motorcycle could beat a doctor in his, $200,000 Porsche.
That's a good
You know what I mean?
promotion there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what kind of got me hooked on it. And then when you fix it up and we went out to the track, it was kind of funny because back in the day at Hawaii Raceway Park, your vehicle, it was called Lane Zero when you went on a street racing night, where your vehicle had to go faster than I think it was like 1140s or something back.
What is that?
11.40 seconds down a quarter mile for you to qualify to go into the Lane Zero. Back then, now you got to remember, like guys with their Chevelles and their Camaros and things like that, their street cars.
Blowing down.
Those guys back then, like the mark for a fast car was 15 seconds back in the mid 80s, right? So if you were
15?
15
That seems
seconds
slow, yeah.
compared to today's standards.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
back then, that was like the thing. That was like you were somebody if you could get your car going into the 15 seconds back.
I think a
then.
Tesla is like, what, like 6 seconds?
Yeah, but we're
Or it's
talking
not even.
Yeah, but we're talking 35 years ago.
Yeah,
right
that's
now,
true. Back
you
in
know
the
what I mean?
day. It's before I came out the womb, though. Yeah.
So I mean, it's like 1140s back in the day. So it's kind of cool because when you got to go into that Lane Zero, everybody knew that you were one of the fastest on our island. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was kind of cool where I could go into there and you see all these other guys, and then they pull you up to line up against another guy with his street Camaro or whatever it is, and you just kind of let him go first and then just blow his weeds down.
Oh, yeah,
by
so
half
you're
track.
racing cars and
Yeah,
bikes and everything.
We used
yeah.
to race cars and bikes
interesting.
then, so it was kind of cool.
But did Hawaii ever have like the circular track or anything?
Dirt track. They had a circular dirt track.
Oh, the dirt track.
Yeah.
What do you race on that? Like, you wouldn't take your...
The dirt track they had some really fast cars. They had like the wing sprint cars.
Huh.
You know what I mean? They had people who had bombers where there was like junkyard cars.
Oh.
That would go around it all the way up to those really fast alcohol burning,
Yeah.
methanol burning sprint cars and stuff. So it's there's all different forms of racing for people to get into, So, as we started doing the motorsports TV show, when Hawaii Raceway Park closed in 2006, it was devastating for all of us because now there was no place for us to race, right? So a lot of folks you could see the spike up of fatalities happening on the street. At one time, we hit like almost 100 fatalities a year, which back then I think the record back then in 2005 was like 67 or 76 or something like that. So the spike was significant. And in 1995, drifting was starting to become the hot thing. You know, I mean, actually, 2000. I mean, 2007.
Is that wait, when did Tokyo Drift come out? I feel like everyone when Fast and the Furious came out.
Yeah, I think that was around kind of like pretty much the time, like about 2007, 2008, when it was, when the Fast and Furious franchise was starting to really get their traction.
I just remember everyone leaving the parking lot after Fast and the Furious, revving their little cars. I had a Dodge Neon. I was about to race everybody, bro.
Oh, so you were one of those guys with a Neon that told everybody you had 500 horsepower after you put an air intake on and a little canister on it.
Yeah, I just put a little nitrous sticker on it.
Oh, that's good for 5 horsepower.
Yeah,
right
bro,
there,
I'm sponsored. What? And it was my mom's car. But
oh, even better yet. Because it blew up, she had to go and pay for it too.
Yeah.
Huh?
Let me neutral drop this bitch. Oops. Yeah, I did that too many times.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
And what did you blame it on after that, though?
No, my mom knew. She's not dumb. Sorry, but yeah. So okay, so when was the last time you sat on a motorcycle and blew down a track?
95.
95.
Yeah, that. It was a road racing track day event at Grattan.
Where's that? What is Grattan?
Grattan's a track out there in Michigan.
Ugh.
It's in Michigan.
I feel like it's cold.
Yeah, not during the summer months though.
True.
You know what I mean? So it was when we raced up in the mainland in the mid '90s. I started a calendar company and a T-shirt line, and Lean Angle Sportswear and Bonsai Designs for the calendar company. So I went across the country, what they called the motorcycle international motorcycle shows. So it was from Seattle to Cobo Hall in Detroit, Chicago, Jacob Javits in New York, Daytona in Florida. So it got to travel all over the country, and I advertised the calendar and T-shirt line, and it did pretty well, where it afforded me to afford to lease a bike from one of the top teams up there back in the day. And I did that for a year and a half. And my buddy and I, who he was racing and riding with us back in the day here in Hawaii back in the mid 80s, his family lived up there in Highland Park in Illinois, which is Highland Park is kind of like the Kahala of Chicago area. It's Michael Jordan lived like a half block away, kind of type of stuff. And his brother, them guys, ran a well-known running store called Running Right up there in the Highland Park area. The father was head of cardiology at the University of Illinois.
Oh, nice.
And so it was basically the Home Alone movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that nice mansion where they have the exterior shots of that particular house. The parents' house was 2 doors down from that particular house in the Home Alone movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So when I
nice
was up
neighborhood,
there,
man.
Yeah, it was a nice neighborhood. So it was kind of funny because when I was I told the mom one day I wanted to shovel snow. I wanted to see like what's to shovel snow. So they didn't call the snow guy that came to plow, because they do the plowing up into your property, right? They just pile the snow all up at the back end of the property, right? So I told her I wanted to do it. She goes, okay, knock yourself out. She called up the guy to cancel the guy that day, and I shoveled snow, and I enjoyed it because it's like kid from Hawaii shoveling snow.
That's
I never
true.
did do it. You know what I mean? And the snow, because it was colder up there in Chicago, it wasn't the packed slushy stuff. It was the fluffy, blow away kind of type of snow. So when I was out there shoveling the snow one day, and I used to smoke cigarettes back then, I was at the sidewalk smoking a cigarette, and Michael Jordan, his white Mercedes-Benz, drove by, and I was pointing at him, and he looked at me and he waved.
He's like, who the?
So I was like pointing at, wow, that's Jordan, So another funny Jordan story too is because the guy who worked at the brothers' running store was also Michael Jordan's ball boy, because his father had built up a computer company that got bought out by IBM. And so he ended up doing accounting afterwards, and he did the books for Phil Jackson and Scottie Pippen for their financial books. So this kid, Brian, ended up working at this running store, and he was a ball boy prior to that for Michael Jordan when they won the first championship. So Michael Jordan signed a poster to this kid. And
That's
because
awesome.
it got a wrinkle on it, he was going to throw the poster out. So my buddy calls me up and he says, hey, there's an autographed Michael Jordan poster over here. Do you want it? And I said, hell yeah. So he sent it to me. I got it framed and everything else. And it's still sitting in my home office to this day. So it's kind of funny about how I got that particular poster. It was connected to racing in a far off kind of way,
for sure.
But it's kind of interesting, the different stories and twists and turns that you make And I was kind of fortunate that, you know, my mom helped to support a lot of the stuff that I did. Because if you don't have family support when you're trying to do stuff like that, it's next to impossible to get it done. Because in drag racing and in road racing, motorcycles, cars, even NASCAR, like Indy cars, to this day, what's happening in the sport, unlike stick and ball games, you gotta literally bring the sponsors to the table for you to get the ride. You know, you don't get paid for you to go ahead. I mean, it's very few people who can do that. You know, the Kurt Bushes and but all the new guys that are coming into the sport today, you know, they have to bring their own sponsors to the table to not only get the ride, but to make sure you can get a paycheck.
And how does that? So that's one thing I've always wondered is, you see, like, I don't watch NASCAR, but you hear about like Jeff Gordon and all these people. But
Yeah.
where do you start even just driving in a circle, beating other people?
As soon as you can walk. If I had a son, as soon as he could walk, he's going to be on an electric type bike from the time that he
Yes.
can walk.
No, I mean, like, is it because these other cities and states have the actual tracks for
Yeah.
amateurs to go?
You got to figure out a way how to get through the ranks. You know, like there's so many instances over here where, like, at the go-kart tracks over here when they were running here. You know, you got kids from here who were doing it from when they were very young, and
Yeah.
they were fortunate the parents could afford to get those expensive K karts and all that type of thing. So there was a story of a kid when I was doing my Punisher Motorsports. He was he was the best here in our state. He would go to like the championships on Maui or the Aloha State Games,
Mhm.
and he would win it all the time. He ended up going to some of the big races on the mainland, where one of the big go-kart races is called the Blueberry Classic, and this kid from Hawaii won it. Right, so that means that you're one of like the best go-kart racers in the country. Because usually go-kart racing, if you're in that particular genre of motorsport, go-kart racing usually led up to it's an open wheel deal, so it ended up open wheel like into Indy cars. You know what I mean? That's like usually the path. A lot of the IndyCar drivers, when they end up practicing during the off season, what do? They race in go-karts, right, to stay fresh and to keep that.
Really?
Yeah,
So-
because it's almost the same. It's
That's
almost the
interesting.
same feeling because it's low to the ground.
Yeah.
It's got really wide tires, right? So the horsepower to traction rate, you know, is really good. So you can get a lot of good cornering speed off of it. So there was a guy who came over here for this clinic every year before named Nemo Gidley. He used to hold these go-kart clinics over here once a year. And after Hawaii Raceway Park closed, folks at one of the shopping malls used to let them do it in their overflow parking lot. So they had that go-kart, you know, clinic over there. And so this IndyCar driver that used to come over here, he saw this kid and he made friends with him. And they offered him when he was ready to go to college, they offered him an opportunity to work with this karting company. And if he went to the University of Nevada, he could stay over there at the karting place and everything else. And that would have led him to introducing him to some of the IndyCar team owners, because this guy ended up driving for Chip Ganassi with the Target team in IndyCar. That's a top tier team.
Oh,
It doesn't
yeah.
get any higher than that. That's like a Jeff Gordon riding IndyCar. Right? So the kid ended up getting this opportunity, but he got homesick. Right, so he ended
Yeah.
up coming back home, and now he's working like at a firefighter and as a federal firefighter in one of the bases here.
Oh,
So it's one of those
hey, that's
things
a
where-
good gig, though.
It's a good gig, but it's like, you know, to have an opportunity to where you're gonna be at like the Indy 500.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's the hard part. A lot of folks end up not trying to keep pursuing it because to get to those levels, man, it's a lot of sacrifice. It's hard.
I bet that's how most everything is, which is why I like that you keep saying that, you know, when you were pursuing each step along the way, you started a clothing thing or you were doing something to generate your own revenue to pay your
had
own
to.
way in a
You
sense.
had to. It's kind of like me right now. For what we did was with Punisher Motorsports, I ended up befriending a guy who was one of the he's still the longest running professional in the pro stock motorcycle class in the NHRA World Championships.
Oh, wow.
So I sponsored his bike one year to get this program that I had called Race to Vote, to try and get people aware here in Hawaii, because a lot of our motorsports community folks are not registered voters. So it's a program to
Yeah, I can see that.
get them to, like, you know, get encouraged to register to vote. And so we timed it with Steve Johnson to be a part of his program at the Vegas race, because the Vegas race, we probably got easily over 1,000, 1,200 folks over here from Hawaii that go up to that Vegas race every year. So that was a good opportunity to get in at that world stage level. Because when he was qualifying, the announcer kept talking about, they don't have a racetrack here in Oahu. This is why, this Race the Vote thing is on Steve's bike and everything else. So I got to be really good friends with Steve. And there was an opportunity to get a pro stock motorcycle bike from the mainland. Because with the Race the Vote program, I was trying to work with a lot of the locals over here to use their bike, to put the logo on top of there. And if we can take it to go and do exhibitions, like, to be on display for whenever we're going to be. Because I'm fortunate where I worked with a lot of the companies here to be able to be sponsored by them. So when they have their events, I go over there and videotape it, be a part of their community events and that kind of type of thing. So I was looking to be able to team up with some of the local racers. But Hawaii, the Ama Crab state the way it is, I didn't want to be in a situation where, the guy's having a bad day or he got jealous of what we were planning on doing and saying, oh, nah, no can today, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Steve helped me to find this particular bike from the mainland. And I was fortunate enough to get sponsors who underwrote it.
Oh, nice.
So that bike that you see over there,
Yeah.
I didn't pay a penny for it.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't pay a penny for it.
That's a deal, man.
And so as I started to get to do with Steve and this particular bike, instead of it just being a display vehicle, I'm like, this bike is fast enough for me to get licensed in the NHRA as a professional. And while the bike was still stuck over there in Illinois, a whole bunch of other things happened because I did another TV show, and so I sold some of its assets to be able to pay for the bike to get trucked from Illinois to California. And Coletta, which is one of the top teams in the NHRA, he also owns an air freight company. And so his air freight company leases their planes to one of the freight companies here. So they contacted this local freight company, told him, you're flying this bike for Punisher Motorsports to Honolulu. And that's how that bike got flown from the mainland to here.
Oh, wow.
So, it's one of those things where the networking thing kind of goes along.
Yep.
And then as we were doing that Race the Vote stuff, I got friends with Karen Stouffer. She is one of the top professionals in that category. She's finished in the top 10, like 12 times in her career type of stuff. So when we had the bike over here, it was on display at Ron's. Karen came over here to help me to get the bike noticed. We got some press coverage out of it. And then when we did the Race the Vote thing, Steve flew in. And as I was speaking to Karen, them guys, I got the opportunity to start getting their tutelage to get seat time on a bike on the mainland. And the opportunity came up, and as I work with sponsors or as I'm doing the television program, funding is extremely limited. So I ended up taking some part-time jobs, right? I ended up to try and get some money just to fly up there to rent the bike. So there was a guy who was doing a deck. He was building a deck on his, he had the permits and everything else, but they had a contractor who came in, but I had, experience putting together, I did construction for a long time.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I ended up, the guy saw me and ended up working on this guy's house project for like about 2 months. Earning enough money, taking recycled cans.
But see, that's the thing.
It's the sacrifice to just keep trying to move forward. And a lot of folks think that, you got this and you got that, but the other things, you know what I mean? And now we got to this point where I'm working with other companies now where they're going to be underwriting even me to fly to the mainland to get licensed.
That's awesome.
Why are they doing that? It's because now my television show, Punisher Motorsports, after 22 years in 2022, is going to have the opportunity to be the first program here for the state of Hawaii to go national. You know what I mean? So come April, it's a 3-year deal. We're going to be doing it nationally.
Oh, nice.
And so what we're doing too is we're going to be shooting, besides all these project builds or all these other sponsors that I've worked with over the years, from Miller Welders to Edelbrock to Napa to all these different companies. Now when they thought that we were just going to be here for builds on a local television show, they got the added bonus that they never probably thought was going to happen, which is going to be the national arena now. You know what I mean? So with that, we're going to also be taping in a lot of stuff with me getting licensed. That's going to be part of the program. So it's going to just expand and just so many things that I never thought that these things would have come to this level. You know what I mean? But it's about sacrificing and not stopping what you envision in your head and these dreams, and you just keep going. Like when I started this, thing 23 years ago, like, would you have ever imagined that your show would be going national and you're working with these companies?
Yeah.
And it's like you're gonna have a pro stop motorcycle bike in your garage, and Steve Johnson, this guy that you idolized when you were just doing bracket racing back in the day, now it's your bud.
Yeah.
And you're working with him now, and he's helping me to go and use his second bike to get licensed in this coming year. A lot of stuff was supposed to happen last year, but because of the COVID situation, things got kind of pushed back.
Well, see,
a year.
And that's fascinating because I'm learning all this at the same time. Anyone who's listening is learning all this about you, because I've met you a few years ago, actually. Maybe was it 2018?
Yeah, when you and I were both running in 2018 for office. Yeah,
we were both running for office.
After we both got our butts kicked in the primary, and then we ended up being at a community function.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. What was that?
I saw you sitting at the table, and I knew who you were.
I think I was there with my friend Frobel.
I think so. Yeah. I think you were.
And then
Frobel.
I think he had somebody visiting.
Yeah.
But I just can't remember what maybe I don't know, Filipino Chamber of Commerce.
Something. It was one of those. It was one of those community activities. Yeah.
But I'm glad we connected.
Yeah.
And we're able to continue talking story through this whole time.
Yeah. And we got to be pretty good friends over those couple of 3 years now since.
Yeah. Because it's fascinating. Like I don't, your path is a lot different than mine, but you're kind of in the same way. Like people don't see the struggle or the things that you did along the way.
It's amazing, right? It's kind of like especially like when I was doing this back in the day, before you were born.
Yeah, before I came out the womb.
There's not you think that it's kind of exclusive to you, this particular struggle.
Yeah.
But now with social media or cable, like the documentaries and stuff, one of the shows that I'm kind of hooked on right now is this thing called The Food That Built America. And you see all these struggles for these companies like Kraft and all of these guys, or like Elon Musk struggle.
I've seen that.
And all of those programs and stuff like that. So when you watch how these guys came on, it's like, wow, it's the story of how they got there is different. Their pathway is different, but the struggle is identical.
Yeah.
Everybody struggled to get there. So if you're thinking that, it's going to become an overnight success, nah. And one of the things that I always took from my grandmother, rest her soul, she had always told me two things that I always remember to this day, right? Rome wasn't built overnight. And if it's worthwhile, you're gonna just keep doing what you need to do.
Right.
And the second thing that she always told me, if I ever see you sitting on the side of the curb crying, I'm gonna kick you in your butt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's the world doesn't care. Everybody's got their own problems, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who has their struggles. Nobody cares about your story until you're finally successful.
Dude, 100%. I mean, even for me, like I'm not super successful, but a lot of the things that I've set out to do, I mean, people don't understand the struggle. And I'm not going to get into that whole argument about, white privilege and all these things that I'm just handed opportunities.
Yeah.
I've worked very hard for the things that I have. And, but they are there the second that they see you in a photo with someone who's important, and they want to know, how do you know that person? How are you in that group? How do you know these people? How do you have this and that?
Right.
But they don't want to hear about the struggle and the things that happened before that. Yeah. But
it wasn't handed. Nobody who's gotten to there, right, on a silver platter. Like even Elon Musk. Yeah, he sold, PayPal and all of that type of thing. But you look at him, he leveraged everything for those 3 companies. He was borrowing money from friends to pay rent. He was sleeping on friends' sofas. Yeah. He was sleeping on floors.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something like, even for me, like in Hawaii, I couch surfed for the longest time. I didn't have a permanent place to stay. I was never homeless on the street, thankfully. But, just if you want it, if you want to be in there, if you have a particular dream or a goal, you'll fight for it if you really want it.
Everybody always says this, regardless of who it is. They always said that if you chase the money, it's always going to be beyond your reach. But if you chase your passions, it's eventually going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's
a good one. Yeah.
Hard work never goes unrewarded. It eventually comes back. The problem is you gotta stay vigilant and stay focused. And you know, Jimmy V said it the best: never give up. The guy who had cancer was always preaching, never give up. You know what I mean? I mean, you watch his story about how he came to prominence and how his team won the national championship, right, in collegiate hoops. I mean, all of these guys, like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You listen to all these guys. The struggles are all identical.
But we only see the success.
Yes, that's the problem with it, right? You never see them from Pop Warner football.
Right.
You never see them getting a concussion when he was in high school, right? It's like the thing about it. It's the victories for them to get there. It's not easy, man. It is not easy, and you know, even your loved ones, most of the time they don't understand it either.
And that's the thing too. Actually, even when my idea, even with the podcast, like the last people that I told were family. They don't even know.
Right.
And
right.
friends, because they're with you every day. It's like if you're trying to lose weight, if you don't take a before photo, you see yourself every day.
Yeah, right.
You don't notice
it.
you're losing the weight.
Right.
The people around you don't particularly notice you're losing the weight because they see you every day.
Every day.
So they're not seeing your struggle, the hard work you're putting in. They just know, oh, you can't hang out tonight for whatever reason.
Right.
But so those are the hardest ones to convince. But once you convince them, then you know it's golden. But I want to revert back to Tom Brady, and I can't stand that guy. But I love him. I couldn't
either until I found out what really happened with Deflategate and how he held his composure and never, blasted the NFL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when you started hearing the stories about what a great guy he was with Tampa Bay, then it's like I started cheering for the guy.
It's hard to hate him, right?
Yeah, you couldn't hate him.
As much as I want to hate him.
And then when they won the Super Bowl after that, it was like, because everybody kept saying that Belichick was the brain trust.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see him, and even Arians, right, the coach from Tampa Bay,
mm-hmm.
right, he was the guy who said, man, one man made the difference.
Yeah. Well, and then he brought Antonio Brown and
because the team listened to him. Nobody else was going to listen to him. Listen to what's going on with Russell Wilson right now. Russell Wilson is just as talented, right? But Seattle, they're not listening to what he needed to do. Brady proved that if he knows what he's talking about, he's such a disciplined player,
mm-hmm.
right? He can see because he's the general on the field that can tell you. The coach isn't on the field.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Most of these guys, most of the coaches, they came through the coaching ranks. They're not a player.
Yep.
Much less at a professional level.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And he's just another example of someone that you just see the success and you hate his success. But he has played for years. I didn't know who he was till he started winning.
The guy was drafted what?
I don't even know. Wait, was he the same class as Ben Roethlisberger?
He was. I'm not really sure, but I know that he was like the last guy drafted kind of type of stuff.
Really? And those are those stories. Those are those stories where it's like
saw it.
The last dude nobody wanted.
In the meantime, you see like the Ryan Leafs. How did they work out? Right? Top draft picks. You know what I mean? So
it's all about the hard work, which is something that I feel that is kind of slipping away in the mentality of a lot of people. And it kind of goes back to your story. You didn't go to college to be a camera guy, to do editing.
No.
But you were like the top in your field.
I was never good in school. I was never, you hear that from all these entrepreneurs. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
All these different types of guys. They talk about the school system is not made for. They don't even teach kids anymore about how to be financially responsible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's something that if it was taught, I never did well in school. I was never interested in school because the curriculum was. But every time I took one of those IQ tests, you know what I mean? I was in the upper 1 percentile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think of those kinds of people. I don't know where I'm at. I never took one, but I'm more of a hands-on type of, like, I just want to do. I don't know, man. I don't need a music class. It's not my interest. But yet you have to sit through a music class. I have a master's in public administration, and I still had to take classes even during my bachelor's that I wasn't interested in. But luckily the GI Bill covered it. But I don't see why why did I have to take electives in like art? I don't care about modernism, art. I don't know, like whatever.
Right, right.
You know, music, things like this. Like it doesn't interest me.
You look at today, though, especially a lot of the kids from your generation. The vast majority I know of folks that went to college, easily over 90 percentile, right? They're struggling with the load of the student debt, and they're not even in the field that they got their particular degree from.
But in their defense, and well, not my defense because I made my own choices, but when I was in high school, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We didn't know, like our high school didn't teach us about anything really.
Right.
We didn't know about grants. We didn't know about scholarships. We didn't know. All we knew was that we shouldn't work as hard as our parents. My dad did construction. My mom working 2-3 jobs. We should get a suit and tie. We should get a college degree and be in an office. That's what we had to do. So that's what we were all told.
Right.
We had to go to college. We had to get a suit and tie. We had to go to an office and the air conditioning. We didn't want to have to work hard. So an entire like 2 or 3 generations were told this, you know? And then when we go to college, we start realizing like, oh, wait, no, this is not what I want. And then you graduate with a whatever degree in liberal arts or liberal sciences, which it doesn't translate to any real career.
Because what happened was, right, college started to try to be everything to anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So now instead of getting core academics down, they started to expanding it to literally a lot of these courses and classes or degrees that people get. I mean, you can kind of like mix and match your own thing to try and make a hybrid degree.
Listen, I really knew college was a scam. They offered diplomacy and military studies as a graduate degree. Now, when you look at your career field from that degree, it says like foreign service officer, diplomat, ambassador. Okay, so first of all, you cannot apply to be a diplomat or an ambassador. You have to be a campaign donor to a presidential candidate who wins.
Right, because it's an appointed position.
To be a foreign service officer.
Right.
I'm not sure if you have to have a bachelor's degree. You might, but I've taken that test 3 times, and I've gotten to the second stage, which is an essay. I'm always beaten because of the curve. And to be honest, I'm always beaten by some. I think the last person I got beaten by was an immigrant from Nigeria. Super smart. So these tests, like this degree, does not get you that job. That's just a possible career path. You still have to take all these tests, and you still have to go through this whole process. And then I was working at a law firm, a family law firm, which is sad, family law. But and then UH announced that for their law school, if you graduated from UH with a 3.2, you didn't have to take the LSAT. You could just go right into law school. And this is at a time when law schools were saying that class sizes were dropping because no one was going to law school.
Right.
So they need to raise the revenue. And I mean, you could take law school online now because it's just a business. And my bosses at the law firm would always complain because a lot of these new attorneys that were coming out of law school barely passed the bar. And a lot of people who go to law school cannot pass the bar. They just have a law degree, so they have to go work for a nonprofit or something, but they can't pass the bar because they're just letting people who should not be in law school attend law school.
It's kind of like a lot of the situations right now. It's like instead of having folks still have to meet the bar is now continually getting lowered.
Yes. And I mean, sadly, we're seeing that with a lot of things. And again, I don't want to get too much into it, but I saw a thing about NASA says they're going to put like a woman or a colored person on the moon by some date.
Right.
You know,
it's like all in the name of trying to make a record of being the first or something.
Yeah.
Versus being properly qualified, or
yes,
you know what I mean? That you deserve the position because of your qualifications.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but you know, the same thing. You look at all these guys today, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk.
They work
Gary
hard.
Vaynerchuk, all of these guys, right? You try and ask them about an MBA, they says they will Warren Buffett. It's like MBA, we will never hire anybody who has an MBA because they're damaged goods already.
Yeah, because they don't have like for you with the editing and the racing and the knowledge, like that was your passion, right?
Right.
Somewhere along the line, it went from people's passions to do these jobs to, hey, that's a salary I can make, and yeah, maybe I can
Right.
kind of do that. So
A
I'll
lot
go
of
to
those
school.
things, a lot of those things can't be found in a book. It's only that
Yeah.
you can learn from experience.
Yeah, and
You know, it's the same thing. Like when we a lot of the folks that go through the broadcast programs, right? TV Pro, Leeward Community College, all of those type of things. You can show people the book of how to turn a camera on, where's the power button, how to focus.
Mhm.
You can't teach them when to focus properly, how to rack a focus to making it, a artistic shot, when to open your iris, when you should pull it down. You know what I mean? Those type of things only come from experience. And at the end of the day, what happens? If you're really good in that particular industry, you're gonna get to compete for things like Emmy Awards. They don't just give those things out to
Yeah.
you because you got a degree in TV Pro.
Well, I've always been under the belief that back in Pittsburgh, we had a thing called the Art Institute. And you could go there and learn how to do art, like
Right.
graphic design and
Right,
stuff.
right.
But man, in my opinion, if you have to go to school to learn that, you're not going to be as good as someone who just genuinely had that passion and
Yeah.
desire. Like if you aren't 10 years old right now learning how to code Python on your computer by yourself because you just find it fun.
Right.
If you're going to go to a school to learn how to code, you are never
Yeah.
going to be at the level of that 10-year-old kid because it's not your passion. But it's just something that maybe you're kind of good at that you feel you should
Right,
pursue.
right.
But
Eddie Van Halen said it once, because Eddie Van Halen never had,
guitar
like
lessons.
like that kind of type of stuff, right? But he came from a musical family, so he did have some sort of, introduction to proper notes and that kind of type of thing, because his father was a traveling musician, right? But he said, if everything new is found outside of the book, and if all you know is the book, how are you gonna discover anything new? Because when Eddie Van Halen, all the techniques that he did to, back in the day, the hammer-ons and all that type of stuff, you couldn't find it in the musical book. But because
Yeah.
of what he did, there are music books now that be able to, be able to show people or teach them musically
Yeah, but
note-wise
see,
of
you know
what he
what?
did. But he wrote the book.
But see, and the thing
Right?
is, like, in my opinion, like, even like Jimi Hendrix and all those guys who are great artists, dude, they were on like drugs and shit. Like, some people, they do things to take them to another level. Even people who work at Silicon Valley are like microdosing on LSD to create all these amazing programs. Like,
yeah.
but again, that's because that's their passion and they're willing to do what it takes to get what they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's another form of art.
Yeah, for sure. For
Art,
sure.
when anything has to do with art, like for me, a lot of the things that we do, and we're fortunate, and I get a lot of support for it, sponsor wise and stuff, is because I'm creating something that's never been done before, right? Like taking a particular motorcycle and cutting it up, redoing the body work, and making it look like a modern motor GP bike from a bike that's from 2001, 20 years ago. That looked like a bread box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's going to get a lot of notice and recognition because of what it stands for. And at the end of the day, when you look at it, most people will get it. Like, it's actually an expressive form of art.
Oh,
You
no,
know
of
what I
course.
mean?
I think anything that someone can do that's, I don't know, creative or just kind of out of the ordinary or different is like art. Like, I don't know, like I don't consider art like necessarily like a painting or a sculpture
Oh, yeah.
or something. Some people like love him or hate him, Obama. The art of talking to people.
Right.
He's
that's
a great
an art.
orator.
Yes,
Like
he is.
that's
Yeah.
he is like I don't know, maybe like a once or twice in a lifetime person that I'll
Right.
ever see that can give a speech and it's just completely captivating and fascinating to me.
Right,
Like I
right,
love
right.
listening to Obama talk. And to me that's art.
Right.
Um
Like Kennedy. I can listen to a lot of Kennedy's old speeches.
Yeah.
How he inspired folks.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's what the UN was. How it motivated a country to go to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's it's important, like a lot of things. You know, it's unfortunate that we see a lot of stalwart organizations, companies, corporations, like Sears or Love's Bread, that I grew up on. You know, 100-something-year-old companies are vanishing. And it's sorry and sad to say it's because they weren't able to adapt and adjust to the changing economies. You know, if all I kept sticking around with back in the day was, no, I need to edit just tape to tape.
Yeah.
Right? 1080. You know, like all of the stuff that now that we're shooting, you know, or standard definition, because my camera can shoot macro really well. You know, it's you got to learn to adapt and change, constantly changing. The whole earth is evolving all the time.
All the time.
All the time. It's never going to stay the same. So you have to continue. Like even right now, when we're shooting all of the new content for the program, yes, 1080 is the television's industry standard, but we're shooting in 2K because we have to be able to, you know, look for how the future is going to be moving. And it's not going to go backwards in the resolution. It's only going to move forward.
Hey, man, they got 8K already.
Right. But for the 2K anyway, at least you know the footage that we shoot today is going to be archival footage that we can still utilize 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, whenever they're going to move up to that.
Yeah,
next
but
level.
then you know what? Like in like 10 years, it's gonna look all blurry. Like you ever watch like a 90s TV show? Like, oh, why is it so?
Well, it'll
so blurry?
instead of letterbox right now, it'll be like a postage stamp in the middle of your huge screen.
Yeah, you're like,
right?
what the hell?
But I mean, it can, but you can still, I mean, through the capabilities when you export files now, you can still have it exported as an HD file though.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
True.
So there's a lot of things that you got to be able to keep up with the times. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, even if they say 8K, you're still going to have an 8K screen to be able to view it. And
Yeah.
they did a test when 4K started coming out. And they said the human eye honestly cannot discern even the most minutest thing beyond 2K.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
I've heard that. Yeah.
the
So that's why
the
with the-
human eye is just not capable, unless now they're looking at us having, you know, implants in our eyes. It's going to make us bionic.
hey, bro, Neuralink, Elon Musk. Again,
Right.
it fascinates me. Someone like Elon Musk, who is just this wealthy guy. He's intelligent in a certain sense.
He learned space engineering on his own
Yeah.
because no one was willing to teach him.
But isn't it fascinating though? Like, there's so many millionaires and billionaires, and they're doing nothing with their money. Okay, they give to like charities and nonprofits, but that's a
Right.
tax write-off. That's why people start an LLC, right?
right.
Tax write-off. This dude was like, I'm gonna go to the moon.
Mars.
I want to go to Mars.
I wanna go to
Like,
Mars.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Dude, we could have been to Mars like a century ago if these same millionaires would have just put.
Well, we could have been energy independent as far as the nation was from the 70s.
Yeah.
When we had the first oil embargo back then, we could have used that as an opportunity to say, okay, hey, we can wean ourselves off of this oil and let's start looking for other alternatives. But because, you know, the oil prices was dropped back down again, so it was like, we're okay for now.
Yeah.
Right?
Which now is funny is even when you look at the oil industry now and how we're converting to electric vehicles and people drive their Prius and their Tesla and they say, oh, I'm saving the environment, la la la. Like,
But how are they getting the electricity though?
yeah, they just don't. People don't get it. But I do want to circle back to the art,
Okay.
because with you recreating the bike to make it more of a modern, because you said like an old school bread box to more of a modern.
It's kind of like one of those things. Like even when I began racing back in the day, you know, there weren't as much race parts as per se today, right? More available, quality wise as well too, because they were still figuring it out. When I was racing, there was no such thing as an air shifter, like I showed you on a bike, where you push this button where it shifts it into the next gear, where it momentarily electronically kills the ignition for a thousandth of a second so that it could bump into the next gear. They had this thing called a two-step where you can be on a rev limiter so you can launch at a higher RPM before you dump the clutch. When I stopped drag racing back in
95.
1989, when I stopped drag racing,
Oh, drag racing.
that was a device that was just still brand new. Now everybody has it. Street Outlaws, all these guys use it.
What I want to do is I want to circle back to art and your definition of art, my definition of art. So I just want to say that my definition of art is anything that makes someone think especially think outside the box. So you were saying that you took an old school bike that was like a bread loaf, I think you described it as,
Right,
and
right.
made it more of a modern bike.
Right.
So explain what you mean by that.
It's trying to create something that you have available, right? So a lot of artists, like when I first began racing back in the day, you know, a lot of the things that was available back then was still brand new. And brand new always means expensive. You know what I mean? So I couldn't afford it. So a lot of the stuff that I would do is I would recreate my own. You know, a guy showed me a long time ago where like to shift it into the next gear, you know, and you have your cutoff switch to start the motorcycle,
Yeah.
would put a spring in it. Because in that way, if you hit it and you let go, it would spring back in and not kill the ignition, but it would do it just for momentarily. Same thing that an air shifter does, or what they call an electronic shift nowadays.
Oh, I see.
Right? So that's particular stuff because the air shifters, I couldn't afford it back then. You know what I mean? So even today, it's a lot of these GP bikes that come out and things like that. They're specifically made for factory teams. And these guys have millions of dollars in their budget. Everything is carbon fiber or titanium something, right? So for me to be able to take an older bike to be able to mimic or look like what a modern, you know, MotoGP bike looks like doesn't exist. So you got to kind of make it on yourself. So cutting up the existing fairing to butcher it up to be able to do it. And I was able to do that because I learned how to do body and fender a long time ago. And then a guy who I knew recently who owns a company called Learn Auto Body and Paint, who was in Texas, where he teaches people from his online courses how to do body and fender. Well, come to find, this guy was from Hawaii, right? And so I made a connection with him, and through my television show, using it as a platform, he gave me a password, a special access code to his online teaching programs, and I learned about this new thing that wasn't available when I stopped body and fender 35 years ago called epoxies. Epoxy wasn't around back then. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
Huh.
The epoxies that were around back then were crap.
Ah.
It was like it was worse than Elmer's glue. You probably put it on, and if you sneeze, the thing would fall apart.
Fall off, yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So these epoxies nowadays are amazing because you can take dissimilar materials like fiberglass and make it bond to metal.
wow,
And
yeah.
the thing is so amazing where you can grab that little piece of fiberglass and try and tug it off the metal, and you can lift up the whole car from it. You know what I mean? So I got to be fortunate to learn it from Tony's, learnautobodyandpaint.com. And Tony moved back to Hawaii.
Oh, yeah? Where's
So
he stay now?
He's up in Pupukea side. He and his family's bought a nice house up there. So we're going to be doing a lot of projects with him from his place. So he converted his 3-car garage that was at the house that he bought, and it's now going to be a paint booth. Right? So
I love that.
it's
Again, that's the passion
it's a passion.
for the.
But the thing about it too is finding and working with like minds and collaborating. Where a lot of these folks, I see them, especially the young kids, it's like, well, because I learned how to do this, if I'm going to work with you, even if you have value of what you can bring or you can give to me, you still need to pay me in money. A lot of the folks and these kids got to learn, it's like, if you can work with each other and help each other out, it's not always about the money. Because if that guy had to pay you to be able to, for you to help him to get what he wants out of your skill level, he couldn't afford it. You know what I mean? So it's trying to find like minds and collaborate, and to be really honest, man. All the support that I've gotten for what I've been doing here for my company and the projects that we do, 95% of all my support comes from folks outside of this state. When you try and work with somebody here in the state, right, they refuse to help you, or they get jealous because they see you doing something like, how can this guy be coming from the same place where I am and he's doing it but I can't?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, if we work together, I can help you get there too. No, instead I'm gonna decide not to help you instead, because I'm hoping that if I don't help you with my skill, you're gonna sit down and cry and not do what you need to do. No, my grandmother told me a long time ago, right? Remember what I told you, right?
Yeah.
If I was you sitting on the side of the curb, I'm going to kick you in your butt.
But see, what those people don't realize is if they haven't done it and aren't doing it, just because you fail or succeed you know, are they going to do it? Or if you fail, are they going to do it? Are they
No.
going to fill that void? They're not.
They're
So
not. The majority of the time, like all these type of people who have that mindset, I can go back 10 years from now and they're still going to be doing the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
Right. But in the meantime, now, like, I'll give you a good example, like cutting vinyl stickers, because sponsor logos and everything else. If you go out and try and get somebody to do it, you know, it's like a little small logo for them to digitize it and then cut it. You're looking at, you know, $50 for it to digitize, and then they charge you per square inch. So this one little sticker,
Yeah.
right at the end of the day, is going to probably cost you, just to research and development, is going to be like $100.
yeah,
At the end of the day, I'm like, shit, I didn't want it in that color. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then now you got to go back to the guy, and then he's going to charge you now because it's digitized $50 for that sticker. So I had learned how to do it on my own, because this other, you know, good friend of mine, his wife did it for me before. So she just told me, go get this machine.
do it yourself.
Then when I asked her how to do it, she wouldn't even tell me how to do it. I had to go find out on my own. Right?
You got to YouTube it.
Yeah, so even then, there was nothing really about it. So, like, I wasted a lot of material, right? Trying to figure it out. But then again, it's like pennies,
Yes, yeah,
right? And now, like, when you see my bike, all those logos on top of the sponsor logos, I did it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to do it and pay somebody to do it, that was probably like about $500 worth of logos on the
Yeah.
bike. I can change it out tomorrow. And because now I'm going to use it for a different sponsor for their particular event, I can change it out every day, and it costs me 2 feet by 5 feet sheet that cost me $10 to get shipped over here.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, see, and again, that goes to people like yourself, other people that I know, and how I consider myself. If you want something, you just do it. You don't wait for anyone to do it for you.
Yeah. Learn how,
You know, a lot of people will let you down along the way, which sucks.
They will. And at the most inopportune time as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I learned, like, even when we're doing Punish 'Em,
Mhm.
because I was never the guy in front of the camera. Now, most of the folks who watch Punish 'Em know me as the host of the TV show. They don't understand I do everything. When we were still at Olelo, a guy who was a friend who had brought the host to the table, who she was in radio at the time, 2 days before when I was supposed to be able to tape my next episode, they tell me, yeah, we're not going to do it with you anymore. Bye. Right?
Yeah.
So luckily I called up a good friend of mine who I worked together now, who's a senator. I called him up if he could help me out to find someone else. And we got someone filled in,
Mhm.
you know, and as time kept going along the way, because a lot of these projects, you know, it doesn't make a lot of money. You just basically make just enough to pay the bills, right? And because you're creating something. When, you know, in year 17 when I did Punish 'Em, I couldn't get sponsors on board, right? All of a sudden, year 18, when I was able to perfect my pitch, I guess,
Mhm.
or I was able to improve the promotional packages, you know, it got 40 companies now today.
Took off from there.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you gotta be able to push through the hard times. Because let me trust you, Mike Sakamoto, who's a well-known guy here in Hawaii, he started this program called Fishing Tales. This is back in the day.
I've heard
It-
of that.
it
I don't
was-
know who
It was when,
Mike is, but I've heard of
when
that.
OC16 first came about. It was their anchor show when they were starting out their cable station. Okay, Mike Sakamoto ended up taking his program to national too, where he was on like the beginnings of like what was the Outdoor Channel.
Oh,
And if you
nice.
go and you research him from the old, like the Honolulu Star Bulletin archive articles, because he's no longer, you know, they're no longer here today.
Mhm.
Or like the old advertiser. If you go and check him out, he'll always say, man, if you cannot handle rejection in this business, don't do it. Because you're going to get 1,000 no's before you finally get maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a lot of rejection, and you cannot take it personal.
And it,
You got to look at it as always learning experiences.
and it's interesting because if you look at like people who are like, let's just go like actors. Actors, they struggle. They live in their car.
Waiting
they live
on
on
tables.
the street.
You look-
they
you know
wait
what-
tables.
You know who was one of the best ones that I saw? If you look at what happened to Steve Harvey, when he talks
Yes.
about his thing when
Yeah.
he's planning on quitting and going home, and then the phone call came in from that club in Florida, right? Actually, that program, the one up there in Harlem.
Dude, how is that escaping me?
I
right
know,
now?
yeah.
That's like
famous-
that's the
the largest program up there where
Oh my
it was
God.
showcasing, you know, and they called him up.
Live at the Apollo.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Live at the Apollo. When he talks about how he got that phone call, he's like, "How am I gonna get to New York? I had $60 in his pocket at the time," and then the answering call came in from that club out there in Florida, and he drove over there and he got the money. You know what I mean? And how all these guys like The Rock got booed off the stage. You know, Jamie Foxx got booed off the stage, and he did that routine where, you know, the Buster got punched in the eye from Mike Tyson, and the rest is history, man.
But see, and that's it. And that's how, like, you actors, you know, professional wrestlers, whether they like wrestling or not, but like these dudes sleep in their cars
Yep.
for like a decade
Yep.
to get on just for like some screen time or whatever, because that's their passion, you know.
You look at The Rock. Him and his family got evicted from their home here.
And they,
You
and
know
they
what
just
I
kept
mean?
going.
He just kept look at him. He went to Florida. He was a collegiate football player
Yep.
that was ready to get drafted to the NFL, and he got hurt.
Yeah.
That ended his career.
And that's kind of like,
But if he was a professional football player, maybe the path for him to be this big movie star probably would not have happened.
probably wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, a lot of things, I think when people look back on after they finally got the successes in their careers, they look back at those that was the hard times as blessings.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. And the thing, and again, that goes back to like, I think that like it's a lot of people who, they just haven't struggled. They don't want to struggle. They're afraid to struggle, especially now with like social media. They don't want to post on
Yeah.
Instagram that they're homeless. They're struggling on the street. They don't have a job. You know, they want to, they go out and they spend all this money on all these fancy things to put this persona out there or
Right,
whatever.
right.
But bro, in reality, it's okay to struggle. And for anyone that hates on you for struggling, for going for your dream, they're not your friend.
Right?
And when you do make it eventually, fuck them. That's it. So Tracy, I appreciate you coming on. What I'd like to do is I'll offer you a little bit of time. If you have anything going on in your life that you want to talk about or anything like that, anything you want to announce.
What is that thing? What is that program called? The hot stuff or whatever it is, where they, if you were
Oh,
able
that's
to eat
Hot
all-
Ones.
If you were able to eat all the hot wings at the end, then you'd be able to do your pitch at the end. You know
Hey,
what I
you
mean?
made it, and you get 30 seconds or whatever you want to close out with.
You know, it's one of those things where I would, you know, we got a whole bunch of blessings coming up. We got a major event that was supposed to happen last year. A team that I had thought that I was going to be able to hook up with in the NHRA kind of fell apart. Now I'm going to be hooking up with a guy who is an idol of mine, and now, you know, one of the legends in the sport. My TV show is going to go national. Some other major projects that's going to be coming out later that people are like, hey, I remember when you're just talking about it, but these guys took like 12 years till they finally got to their particular, you know, they're getting the permits to do whatever they wanted to do now.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
it takes time. People got to realize, if you wanted to try and make $5 million, how long would it take you to get that? For most folks, they'll never be able to accumulate that in a million lifetimes, right? But if you believe in your vision and, you know, you can see that you have a solid game plan, then no obstacle in your way should ever stop you, because, you know, if you keep working, the luckier you're going to get. There's no way around it. You just got to keep pushing forward, and eventually your breakthrough is going to come. A girl who I saw a story about her who was trying to become Miss, you know, to get to the Miss America pageant. She 6 times before she finally broke through. You know what I mean? And she became Miss USA or Miss America or whatever it was. You know, you and I, how many campaigns have we lost so far? How many numerous campaigns have I worked on? I've worked on campaigns from Arnold Magado's run for mayor back in the early 90s, where I was stuffing envelopes, to now I get asked to help people on their you know, consultants for them for their television ads and stuff like that. But if I never went and took the leap to get into television, that would not be the opportunities.
And
You know
that's-
what I mean? So you got to be able to you can't be so rigid, because if you look at a path, whenever someone succeeded, it's never in a straight line. It's like weaves in and out, goes backwards, comes back again, goes back again. And before, you know, a lot of times it's 60 steps back to take just a half step forward, you know. But as long as you keep trying to believing in what you're trying to do, there's nothing you can't do. But there's going to be sacrifices and suffering along the way.
Oh yeah, but you know what? Just as you know, and myself and then other friends that I have, the suffering, when I look back, I'm like, damn, if I made it out of that,
Right.
there ain't nothing can hold me back. Losing a campaign don't matter to me. I don't care.
That's why a lot of
Whatever.
folks,
Like, it
a lot of
doesn't-
folks don't do it again. Folks who came really close before, right? But because of the letdown of losing a campaign, it's very painful. I tell folks, like, you know, because you put yourself so much out there, even your folks who help you, like my other half, my family, they cry with you at the end of the campaign. It's almost as it's identical to seriously a loss in the family.
yeah.
It is. People
'Cause
have
it's huge.
It's huge. It's huge, and most people cannot handle that kind of suffering and pain. Like when I lost my job due to the merger at the news station, the vast majority of folks, to even this day, they never recovered from 2009
Yeah.
because they were in a career where they were there for practically almost 20 years. They never had enough setbacks to prepare them for that particular moment. And man, let me tell you, brother, life's all about suffering, man. And if you want to get to that opportunity to just touch the brass ring, there's going to be a lot of it along the path, man. It's not easy.
I love it. I love it. Well, Tracy, I thank you for doing this with me. You're my fourth guest.
Thank you, sir.
Still trying to figure out the path and figure out my way. I appreciate you being patient. I think we can have a lot more in-depth conversation about a lot of other more philosophical things at another date. I'm just fascinated about the racing aspect. I think that's your bike out there is beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd race you on my Kawasaki Z400, but I don't want to embarrass you in front of your family and your sponsors and whatever, bro. Like,
Right. I could go and take a nap and a sandwich before you even get to the finish line. No.
well, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed yourself for here. And then, again, if you want to share any social media or if you have any website or anything that you do personally that you want to share with the people, go ahead. And then after that, we're just going to wrap it up.
At Punish UM808 on Facebook and Instagram. Punish UM on YouTube. And stay tuned for the announcement on what national network. The thing that I can do say, though, that because of the partners that we're working with, it's also going to be on Amazon Prime next year as well, too. The thing that we're trying to do is not make it so that when you see these episodes on the national network where it's going to be regurgitated as the same stuff. We're going to make it that what you see on Prime is going to be different, and a whole
That's
bunch
smart.
of stuff on the social media. So that way, you know, it's just not the same old, same old. We're trying to be able to hit the different genres, and thanks to our partners, be able to watch out for like big giveaways. I can make an announcement, like, you know, we're going to be giving away things like turbos from our partners at Turbonetics Precision Turbo.
What am I going to do with that on my Z400, bro?
It could probably...
I can set it next to it, right? And take a photo? Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm kidding.
But yeah, so that kind of type of things that I can announce with. But we're also working closely with the folks from Circuit Hawaii. And those guys are going to probably come out with an announcement very, very soon on a massive project where they're getting things like international certification for this new facility here on Oahu. So I'm excited that we actually got to work with a lot of these partners. And, you know, for folks here in Hawaii, man, don't be afraid to reach out and work with folks, man. Don't be an alma crab. Reach out and do partnerships.
So before we close out, if anyone out there is a racer or interested in racing or something like that, is there somewhere they can go, someone they can contact? You, maybe? Like an email
Yeah,
or a
it's kind of hard
website?
where it's like, it's really hard. It's not something that you can just teach someone. They're going to have to go through the struggles. Because people, like when we get to this level, your partners, your sponsors, I'm not going to go and tell somebody, go, hey, don't sponsor me anymore. Go and sponsor this guy who you don't even know about.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
I
it's
see, I
like-
see.
It took all of us a long time to build up relations. A lot of these guys, I've been with them, you know, them coming from trips to Hawaii, you know, sending them macadamia nuts, meeting them at PRI or SEMA.
That's an ethics violation, bro. No,
You know
I'm
what I
kidding,
mean?
I'm
But I mean, just to build up these relationships with these folks. You know, I've been fortunate now where these relationships are so solid. One of my partners are here right now in Hawaii right now, and we're gonna do lunch next week before they get out of town. And one of them was over here a couple of weeks back, and so it's not something that's gonna happen overnight.
Mhm.
Because to run in professional racing, even in the motorcycle class, it's not cheap. This is a risky sport, and it's very expensive. This is why for most folks, You know, even the folks who did here at the local level. Let's put it this way: when you see these guys at the local level, like when they got like an 8-second bike or like a funny car, that's a house.
Yeah.
A funny car over here that's running on alcohol, it's not as fast as the guys in the mainland, right? But that guy's probably got close to $200,000 in it. This guy that's doing that bike, right? He's probably got about another $70,000 in the bike. Just that bike that you saw that has a practice motor out there.
Yeah.
Right? A used motor for that bike, that's like $13,000 for the motor. You know what I mean? So that's why like the motorsports, when it's a vibrant community, it helps with kids to be mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And also the shops that cater to the motorsports community, they pay money every year to taxes, and all of them combined paid millions in taxes.
So I guess my question is, though, if I'm a kid and I'm in high school and I'm fascinated, and I know we're supposed to close it out, but it's okay. If I'm fascinated with bikes or even cars, my school doesn't offer a mechanics class.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. We're fortunate that, you know, the DOE has gotten some funding from the 2020 legislature, where they're going to try and revive things like auto shop class, trade classes, right? Wood shop, auto shop, that kind of type of things. So with having a vibrant motorsports community, like what Circuit Hawaii is planning on doing here, those type of things with the high schools go hand in hand. And even when we were at the television show, we're working with them to start another programming, like a Punish Them Hawaii thing back again. We want to work with the local high school classes and our partners with the Napas, with the wrecking yards, to get kids with these vehicles that are ready to get jumped for them to compete against each other, like a Kalaheo against Aya High School or Campbell against Castle kind of type of stuff. And then at the end of the day, we have them compete on the stage where it's going to be when one of our major events type of thing, you know?
No, that's awesome.
You know, so it's going to go hand in hand. It's going to be great. You know, like a lot of folks don't realize, when I did my events over here, like, well, we got some possible future events coming up. The professionals coming to town. I take these professionals that don't get exposure on the news and the helmets and the posters, and we give tickets. We go to Shriners Hospital. We go to Kapiolani Children's Hospital. We meet with the families. You know, you should see these kids who are battling cancer or some other debilitating disease, and they light up.
Yeah.
These pros coming in, they're signing the poster, and we give them tickets to come to the event. You know what I mean? It's an incentive. Like, hey, maybe if you got better before this weekend's event, you might be able to come out and come hang out with us and stuff, you know? Community, man. It's about community.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And hey, if you guys, with whatever future events you have, I'm a Shriner.
Perfect.
If you want to,
definitely,
I can connect you to whoever you need.
That's what we always
to get
did.
that going.
We always did that. We took the guys to Shriners Hospital to go and meet with the kids, and then right after that, we walked them across the street and we went to the Kapiolani Children's Hospital. You know?
Nice.
So yeah, it was. I always love to do things like that. You know, an opportunity for me. Whenever I saw these pros coming over here, I always said that the day is going to come where it's going to be my hero card that I'll be signing for these kids. My helmet that I'm going to be able to put on these kids, and yeah, it's coming, man.
Yeah, it's good, man. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope once you start kicking other things off, I hope you'll come back and announce it again officially,
right,
on the podcast, and we'll do what we can to promote it out there, you know. But in the meantime, I hope you'll come back on again. Then in the meantime, man, I just really appreciate you coming on. I'm fascinated with the whole motorcycle racing and things like that. It just, one question before I go. How many accidents have you had?
I've had several.
And how many, well, it was two questions. How many broken bones?
I've been fortunate. I never had any broken bones. You know, I crashed twice on the mainland at over a triple digit. It was over 100 miles an hour. I crashed twice here, Hawaii Racing Park, doing the drag racing when I was first starting, like coming out of the burnout box and dropped my bike. Very embarrassing. Yeah, so I did that twice. But I've crashed a couple of times on the mainland. And it's, for most folks, you know, I dislocated my shoulder, stretched out one of my toes, that kind of type of thing. I was fortunate where I never jammed my wrist, messed up my shoulder, tore some ligaments. To this day, I still feel it. You know, it's going to get worse as I get older. That's why I kind of concentrate more on the drag racing, because drag racing, the chances of you crashing is almost, you know, non-existent. But road racing, you're going to crash. It's just a matter of when.
Ooh.
When you go left and right really fast, and you're sliding the bike around and braking and all that type of things, you're gonna crash. There's no doubt about it. But most folks can't handle that. A lot of the guys I know, once even they get off on like a low speed crash, they never come back again.
Really?
Right?
Yeah, that's it. You
Because
gotta have the heart.
it's traumatic. You gotta have the heart for it. So until for me, like most especially motorcycle guys, the first thing I ask them is like, how many times you crashed? Right? Most of the guys I've met only a handful of guys who said that they've crashed and they still do it.
For me, it would be more my ego. I'd be like, oh, is somebody gonna post that on Hungry Hawaiian or something? Like, damn it. Well, I appreciate it, Tracy. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks.
And again, we'll have to do this again, and I appreciate it. And again, whenever you're ready to kick everything off, please come on, invite me over. We'll have some more whiskey, and we'll talk story.
Good luck with your podcast, and thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.